once in a while there's a product that comes along that really pushes the technology envelope and causes us all to rethink what is possible. The original iPhone is one example. Is the Sony A9 another? I spent a day shooting with the Sony A9, about 4,500 photos at various events that Sony had set up for us in New York City, and I'm ready to share some thoughts. I'm going to answer that opening question, is this a game changer, as we wrap up. But let's hit those headlines first. Blackout-free continuous shooting at up to 20 frames per second for just over 200 raw images or nearly 400 JPEGs. It absolutely works, and if desired, is completely silently. This is amazing. And yes, as a few of you commented on my earlier videos, it's not the first camera to be able to shoot silently, but it is the first to do so at this level with this type of autofocus performance. Nothing else is close in the mirrorless world with this autofocus performance, low light capabilities, and speed, all silently. And when you compare it to DSLRs, you need to spend at least 1,000 more for something like the 1DX Mark II or the D5, and they aren't even as fast and maybe have autofocus systems that are a step below. That's right, the autofocus system in this camera is impressive. Nearly edge-to-edge coverage with over 360 autofocus points. I heard somebody say online, or I didn't hear them, but this is the voice I read them in. 360 points is too many. It's not about choosing your points. It's about letting the camera be able to capably track from edge to edge. And I watched it do exactly that, tracking fast-moving subjects, intersecting subjects, erratically moving subjects. The focus rates I had with this camera in these shooting events was astounding. Between the 20 frames per second and the autofocus system, it is unlikely you're going to miss a shot because of the camera. And the whole operation of the camera is very fast. We got hockey at one end of the rink and figure skating at the other. And for a while, I was just kind of standing in the middle, looking back and forth, trying to figure out what was the most interesting thing. And it would happen that if I was looking towards hockey and I happened to glance over and see the figure skaters about to jump, I could bring the camera up to my eye, get focus, and fire off a series of images without actually missing the jump. That's impressive technology. Overall, it does feel nicer in the hand, and as an A7R2 user, which I've got sitting right back there, I'm really jealous of that little joystick for the focus point selection. The bigger, brighter viewfinder translates to a real nice real-world experience. I've got some additional specs that compare these two on the website, along with additional sample photos, including full raw images for download. But I want to take a few moments in the rest of this video and answer some questions that you all posted on my earlier videos. That silent shooting, which is also electronic shutter, has previously exhibited some serious drawbacks in cameras like the A7R2. Rolling shutter is one of them. In still images, if you or the subject is moving, everything gets slanted. It's not good. I didn't see it in a full day of shooting with the A9 unless I tried to make it hard to happen by swinging the camera back and forth very rapidly, more so than you would in any kind of normal shooting. Image quality and dynamic range have also suffered in previous models when shooting silently, and I'm happy to say I could not see any difference between the quality using the mechanical shutter or the silent or electronic shutter. It's fantastic. Now, the one difference that you will see is your flash sync and flash working does not seem to work properly at this time with some flashes. Did I say that right? With electronic shutter, your flashes may not work always. Sony flashes will probably update and be capable of handling that at some of the slower speeds, certainly not at 20 frames per second though. Overall, the high ISO performance is excellent. Many of you are asking about that. I found it very similar to the A7R2, which I happen to have with me. Battery life, I think the published rating is very low. I think maybe because of the way it has to be tested by SIPA. But I shot over 4,000 images on a single battery. Other reviewers on hand had gotten even higher numbers. I suspect not having to physically move a shutter makes a huge difference in the power required. The dual SD cards is nice, although they need to tweak the options for setup and how you're writing to them. It's not very logical to me at the moment. The screen is touch sensitive like the A6500, which in my opinion means it's just an okay touchscreen. I don't love it. It always feels a little off to me. The touch to focus though generally works well. So I started with the big awesome stuff that is fantastic and works better I think on in real world than even on paper, and we've kind of hit some of those points that aren't perfect. Well, there's a couple more that certainly aren't perfect and hold this camera back some. The video system, there's no S-Log, which is a lame move on Sony's part. It looks like they're kind of holding back to protect their A7S line or a future A9S, and that's something new for Sony, as they typically have been the manufacturer to put it all in. It makes the camera not as strong a hybrid shooting machine because of it. And more importantly, this isn't a knock against the camera, but they are still lacking a few of the longer fast lenses that pro sports photographer, who this camera is really marketed at, desire. Though I will say, with the excellent high ISO performance, that new 100 to 400 should satisfy many photographers. I think you should give it a try. And that Sony support system is nowhere near what Canon CPS still offers, or even Nikon, though Sony did make it a point to talk about this and the changes that they're going to make in the US and abroad in the coming year. But I do think many pros will wait to see how that works out. And while this camera might not be as game-changing as the iPhone was for the smartphone market, it certainly signals a serious shift and showcases just what is now possible. Where will we be in another revision or two of this fantastic stacked CMOS sensor that is so close to a global shutter? I think it's not going to be much longer before this sound is a thing of the past. I'd love to know your thoughts. What is most exciting to you about this camera? What do you think is the biggest issue for widespread adoption? I want to see your thoughtful comments down below, and if you found this video helpful, give it a quick thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Instagram for more content between these videos. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.
You better turn